So let's see how this is going. Hopefully, this should go live now. But please let me know in the chat if it is. As of right now, I'm not really able to confirm. How does this go? Always a little bit of an interesting thing to try to have everything set up again for a live stream. First time in a very long time. And I want to see how this goes. Let's push this live. Let's still can't confirm whether or not I should be able to have a signal here. Or whether or not I'm at least audible. Let's test this without music here. Music must stop for a moment. Okay, it seems like there is actually some audio coming through. Let's see if I can get this set up in a different way with the music. Let's just say. Taking out this. Okay, so I want to this here. So, like I mentioned, always an interesting little thing to have to try to figure out how this OBS thing works again. But it is finally set up. Thank you very much for the blue and purple lights. Yes, this I like them. They are just a little annoying because they are so easily undischarged or like don't have enough charge. Okay, so not very loud. That's interesting. I might be able to give you a little more there. However, I thought I checked the audio volume and it was looking relatively loud, but yep, I can see. Let's see how this goes now. And going up a little bit. Higher, 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 maybe. Let me know if this is better right now. I decided to make the volume a little higher here on the voice, or it's supposed to be louder now. And yeah, so let's see if this goes better now with the voice part. It's a little scary though, looking at the charts here and seeing them all red. Then again, it is what it is. So you'll let me know if there's anything that I can change or should change there. Generally speaking, I have everything set up once again, and it is always a little bit of an interesting thing to get the whole system up and running, because it is, well, how do you say? It's not something that I do every day. It's not something that I just switch on and have ready to go. And so it's always a little bit of an interesting journey here. Maybe I'll just put this up a little more and have the gain lower on the system. Okay. Okay, thank you for confirming that it's louder now. Usually, I am a big fan of just testing everything to the last drop and just making sure that everything works with test streams and test streams of test streams, so to say, and doing it all again and again and again. This is specifically because I am now using the Octava MK012 here that I recently reviewed on the channel, and it's set up right there, kind of in the shot, so you can see it. I would also have other mics available to me, however, I chose to not use those this time around. Maybe next time, I don't know. Depends how this goes, because I really like this microphone and I like the whole, I don't know, style and characteristics of it, and not having something around my hands right here. But if you are watching here and have anything that you want to give me feedback about or have questions about in terms of what I have published recently or will publish, and if you have thoughts about that, you can always share those thoughts in the chat right now, because then I can answer that there or answer here and take the questions from there. However, I also have a plan for what I'm going to do here if there's not really anything to discuss, which is also something that I believe is very interesting for people who are on YouTube, and specifically for people who are creating on YouTube, cutting videos, publishing videos, and doing all that stuff. That's awesome, CM. Thank you very much for that feedback. Like I said, maybe I need to test a little more myself to also make sure that I can confirm that these things are indeed set up in the way that I would want them to be. So and also thank you for the feedback on the approach that I take. I'm trying to basically give you thoughts on products that I am using and also that I am looking at, because obviously I'm not going to be using all the microphones that I reviewed on the channel. And I still wanted to give an overview of what one would run into, because I was honestly intrigued by the price point of those microphones. It was kind of incredible to think that it would even be possible to make a microphone like a pencil type microphone for around 20-25 euros. And I was kind of blown away by that. So that's interesting. But I'm also going to be interested in seeing how my journey here on YouTube will go forward, because as of today, last time I checked, the channel was at, I don't know, 1,990 something subscribers. So maybe this is kind of like a 2,000 people stream, or a 2,000 subscriber celebration stream almost. Yes, I am streaming live with OBS, and every time I have streamed up to this point has always been OBS, because it's the program that is free for one and kind of popular, I would say. I like it for different purposes. However, I will make a comparison about OBS in terms of how it compares to ScreenFlow for screen recordings, because there I think that ScreenFlow, at least, well, it's a Mac-only application, but it's way better in terms of performance and file size needs than OBS for that purpose. That's cool. Do you also, like, when you have the same gear and everything, do you have a channel set up, or any live streaming or something like that? Maybe it's better. Using XLR mics and a recorder is quite the jump, I would say. It's not something that you just do lightly. I also would not have done this if it weren't for podcasting, because there I also am using the Zoom F6 for those podcast interviews, in which I am using. This is the Shure Beta 57A. This is not necessarily typically used for podcasting. The Shure Beta 58A, however, is, and that's like a round ball in the front here. This one here has more of a cylinder type. But that's the reason why I actually jumped to a XLR setup, and now it just made sense to also use the F6 for other purposes, because it has that interface ability as well, for example. Okay, I understand. If you want, you can share about your channel or your setup that you are running, something like that. If not, that's cool too, and I'm really glad that the videos that I make are helpful for you and that you get something out of that, and also that it's information that is helpful to someone. That's always something I appreciate to hear about. Let's see if I can change some things up here. Let's see. I'll pop out the chat, that would be nice. I also have some ideas and plans in terms of what I could be doing with live chat integrations on YouTube, because I am also, like, I like to program, let's say that. And it's something that of a hobby, and yeah, I really enjoy tinkering. And these live streams, I think, will be something where I want to try also to do such things, like little creations that are helpful, and maybe they are helpful for people on YouTube, other creators. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Now, where's the chat? There's the chat. Always a little bit of a funny thing to manage all of these windows. That is true. I was previously using the Zoom H5, so it's kind of like I did that in between step, and the Zoom F6 now is a whole different ball game, of course, with the 32-bit and all the features that it has with automix and such things. And I'm starting to kind of like getting to know all those things. So that's something that is still a process for me. But getting to know this type of gear is something that I feel like levels up everything that I can do. But there's also some other things coming up, because I also have now the Tentacle Sync set up here with the Track E as well as the Sync E. So the timecode syncing and everything will also be part of the upcoming videos. So there's a lot of things that one can do in terms of an upgraded equipment or setup. But it's not necessarily something that you have to do. As I will say in a video that I just exported today and will be going live soon, it's about using what is applicable or makes sense for you at that state in time. And for me, for example, I say, even like if I go out to do a blog type video, I'm not going to bring my Zoom F6. I might bring my Tentacle Sync with the Track E for the purpose of recording audio. I might also bring the Video Mic NTG to just do an on-camera mic situation. So there's all these possibilities and options there. I think I'm fine so far in terms of testing the live stream. I will eventually jump on to do a screen share here as well, to kind of like get the ball rolling on my little tool that I'm building here, or wanting to build. Yeah. And in terms of 2,000 subscriber celebrations, it's not there yet. We have a couple more to go. So it's right now it's 1,969 people in the real-time subscriber count, and I'll be keeping an eye on that for this stream duration. Maybe we can make that 1,900 and maybe we can make it 2,000 during the next couple of hours, which will be here, or which I'll be here for. So yeah. If there are any other questions or thoughts, that is probably very true. That also, the Zoom H1 is something that I've never used. I actually was either using the H6 or the H5 before going to the F6. In terms of just using, like, I had my camera mic, or my mic always plugged into the camera, even to the point that I had a lavalier mic with a long extension cord, and that just plugged into the camera. So mics really work, and sometimes it's just the cable that you want, because having, for example, I have the video in which I tested the mic positioning and also the curtain that I used in my room to kind of like treat the room a little better. Just adding the curtain helped a lot, but even more so, I think, is how close can you get the mic to the person that you are filming. In my case here, for example, of course, this is now in the shot, the microphone right there. But if I weren't to put it there, I could also position it a little further away, or put it about here and angle it at myself, and it would be equally as close, but it would not be in the shot. So I would always consider, before buying more gear, well, obviously you still have to buy some gear to even make those little adjustments, but buying a stand, an extension, and an extension cord, those two things probably are a better investment to get the mic closer to yourself or whoever you want to be filming. That's a better investment than buying XLR mics or a audio recorder or something like that. Getting the mic as close as possible to your subject is key, and I can only recommend it. Been trying to do that for, well, probably since forever, at least for a very long time, trying to do that. There we go. Interesting. Okay. So I am about to the music for this stream, by the way, is of course streambeats.com, produced and given to everyone who wants to stream by Harris Heller, and the channel that he is online with is Alpha Gaming, if I remember correctly. Just to give credit where credit's due, because it is really cool that he is providing this music for everyone who wants to be streaming, and it's just available for us. Yep, always, like, I find it helpful when you see others use similar setups or something like that. It's always helpful for someone to confirm and showcase that. Again, in the setup that my partner uses, for example, Nicole Ryer, her YouTube channel is it's if you will find it if you just search for either Niyama Studio or Nicole Ryer, and she's doing yoga in German. And there, for example, the setup is basically much simpler. She's using a Rode video mic, a Rode Wireless Go as the microphone transmitter. It's a wireless set, and the Smart Lav Plus with an adapter cord to go into, like, the Smart Lav is a lavalier microphone that she uses on her clothing, and that goes to the Rode Wireless Go, and the Rode Wireless Go goes to the camera. And a bunch of her videos were actually produced just with her iPhone as the camera. So there's really an endless amount of starting options. And in that case, a lavalier makes a lot of sense, and a wireless makes even more sense because she's going to move around and those kind of things. So that's something to keep in mind there. Now, where are we? So, I need to keep an eye on my performance here a little bit. Render lag. Okay, so experiencing some render lag here. Good, I think. Yep, I would absolutely say so. Wireless mics are really, really practical. Not necessarily necessary, depending on your setup, but with the Wireless Go and a lavalier, it's a really slick setup and it works great. That's true. Rode is a company that I have yet to have an affiliation with. I have purchased everything that I own from them myself. And I have the Rode Wireless Go. Well, Nicole has the Wireless Go. I have the VideoMic NTG. I have the Rode Video Micro, which is kind of like a tiny little microphone for the camera. No power needed there. And it's just, yeah, very useful. Plan for the next videos. I am not planning to get any other microphones as of right now. I'm pretty happy with how the Octava sounds, but of course there's more that is to be desired with the room in terms of its reverberance still, even though I have that curtain in front of me. However, problem with treating the room, it's expensive, and getting more sound panels is something that is a lot of work and or expensive. So that's something that I have to keep in mind. And I could, like I mentioned, I could just use something like this and it has way less echo. And that's obvious because it's a different type of microphone and it does not pick up the reverberance as much as something like the Octava here does. However, it's also in the way when I do something on my computer. Whoops. Then, in terms of upcoming videos, right now I have a couple of videos coming up for about the Zoom F6, specifically because, well, it's something that I have purchased, I have started using, and I've gotten to know a little bit. And I think there are a lot of things that are to talk about with 32-bit float recording, with the features that the Zoom F6 has, as well as the issues that it comes with, like, for example, the line out port being extremely loud and not able to be handled by a camera like the Canon EOS R. So that's going to be a video. And I have a whole bunch of others. Also, I have something coming up with the the Tentacle Sync E and the Tentacle Track E, which is a little tiny audio recorder, and that one actually provides the ability to also record 32-bit floating point audio, but it does so with perfect timecode. And if you have a Sync E or 2-track E recorders, you can then use those timecode things, which I'm going to be explaining on the channel as well. I'm going to, well, you can use those things to synchronize video and audio very, very accurately without having to clap, sync tone, or something like that. It's just really, really magical. And I will be talking about that a little bit because it's just such a great ability to add to your kit. So those are 2 topics that are going to be coming up on the channel. I will also probably cover a little more about podcasting and launching a podcast because I am also in the process of doing that. In this case, a German-speaking podcast is what I'm going for. So it's the first time in forever that I'm going to make something in my mother tongue, so to say. And that's something there where I'm going to be spending a little time and effort to hopefully launch in January 2020 with that. Of course, something not as interesting for my international audience, except for if you do want to or learn or have learned to speak or understand German. But with that, I might make like an off-branch version of the same podcast in English, which would then also feature English-speaking guests and such. So those things are coming up. And I think that there's a lot of things to be discovered and talked about on the channel. Yes, timecode, something that is not very useful if you are doing live work, or at least not in the setup that I am going to be exploring. However, incredibly useful when you're doing multi-camera shoots, and especially if you do those not with like event shoots type things. Interviews are also really useful there. And yeah, I'm just very much looking forward to integrate it into my workflow. And eventually also, this is going to be interesting when I'm going to be adding a, when I'm adding another camera to the kit. That's where timecode becomes especially useful. Well, then you can listen to the new podcast project as well as it comes out. And it's going to be an interesting one, I hope. Looking for guests right now, looking for the design of things. Yeah, just trying out different things. I have a name. I don't have a proper description or a subtitle of the podcast yet. So that's something that I want to be kind of like diving deeper into the coming week. And probably also cover design and such things to just have at least a basic design ready to go. So that's something that I'm going to look forward to working on. And that's, of course, doing all the video at the same time as also then looking into these things. And it's there's never enough time in the day. Let's see how this. Exactly. Both are like launching 2 different mediums, I think, is something that can really be beneficial to both of them in a way. And also targeting different audiences with having something that is English speaking and something that is German speaking. It's about passion in that moment, because right now I am in Germany, and with COVID we are kind of like locked down, and I won't be able to travel as much as I have in the last few years. And such inspired me to look for people around me to kind of like get info out of them and to gather their knowledge and bring it to that new platform, or not new, have been around for like 20 years or so, but bringing a new show there with content from people around this place. Oh, hiccup here. Yep, never enough time in a day. But now let's jump into what I'm talking about here, or what I want to be talking about today as well, because I want to get code written, or at least a little bit here. To kind of gather the problem. This might be also interesting for you, CM, because if you produce videos for someone or something, or about someone or something, it's likely to publish that on YouTube. And interestingly enough, what I'm going to be talking about here is also applicable for podcasts. Now, the problem is, for a long time, people have started putting show notes in podcasts, and it also started to be a thing for YouTube. Now, YouTube also integrated those things into chapter markers so that they gather the information from the description, as well as, I think sometimes they also read the first comment or something to get those chapter markers from. However, I don't like how much work you have to put in to get those chapter markers actually going, and to kind of like have to go through the video and type out the places where you have put chapter markers in your video or you want to put them. So I have always used the marker function in Premiere Pro, Resolve, Audition, whatever program you want to use. Most of them can set markers, and they can also export those markers, even though it might not be as obvious as you might want them to be, because with Resolve, for example, it's relatively hard work to get those markers out of the program. However, I want to be looking at something that helps you then also transform that file, because they are not really readable. I'm going to show you in a moment how they look, and that basically with a click of a button, that file becomes a show notes file, and it's very easy to use. And yeah, so I'm going to code that now, or start building that. I already have a prototype because I've been using it for a while, but I want something that works on a website. I want something that integrates into an Alfred workflow, and maybe someday in the future there will be a standalone version that you can download and run with a drag and drop of a file to be used on a computer like a Mac, Windows, I don't know. But that's late future. First version, website and Alfred workflow. But also first I want to showcase or show you a little bit of the problem, how this works, and so that we can get to know all of that. It's something that is very useful. So talking about chapter markers in the programs, I'm not going to talk about how they are set in the videos or in the programs like Premiere or Resolve. I probably will be making a video about that, specifically how you can use chapter markers to then turn them into show notes, but that video will probably come once I actually have a working prototype about that. Now, I already have somewhat of a program like that for specifically Audition. Now, to showcase that, I have to change to my display capture, which is this right now. And we want to go to my website. And if you go to my website under More, there's a tool which is called Podcast Show Notes Formatter. And this is under More, Podcast Show Notes Formatter. And this here essentially helps you take Audition show notes and turn those into chapter markers, either with milliseconds or as show notes. And you can also do the reverse. So this is really useful because basically you plug them in here, and the program will give you the show notes that you can just copy to the clipboard and use in your YouTube description. I think I need a Stream Deck or something. So hard to mute myself when I don't. But essentially, maybe I just need to open Audition for a moment here to get a file or a couple of markers here. Well, what you can see right now is a recording of a clipped, very, very clipped signal. This was part of the video that I just produced and will publish in a couple of hours, probably after the live stream. So we'll go to the desktop here, new session. So I'm just gonna randomly put some things here on the timeline. This is Audition. This is an audio editing program that I use for podcast editing. If there's no video, because if there's video, I would probably just edit it in Premiere Pro or Resolve. But let's say you have a marker right at the beginning. So we set a marker there. Then we have a set marker that's about at the end, which is the outro. And this is the intro. And then we have something here in the middle. Talking about something. And because we want to just a fourth one. So now we have those markers, and now I can go to File, Export, and this is not necessarily as visible for you here, but somewhere there is a option. Well, I just mark those, export markers, selected markers to CSV, and I want to put them on the desktop. So we can close this and no to all. And from here, I want to open this file, or I bring it over to my little Finder window that I have here, because these are the markers for Audition. And opening those up in a little text file editor, this is how they look. So what you see right now here, let's see if I can zoom in here. Okay, not really. So what you can see here is that this is basically a CSV file. CSV files are either tab separated, so this is like a tab character, or they are comma separated. And you can see that this at the top here denominates how these columns are going to be called. And then you have the data. So we have the first marker, the second marker, the third, and the fourth marker. These markers are stored with their starting duration or starting timestamp and their duration. You can set markers as with an in and out point. We don't do that here, but you could in theory. Then it's something about format and the type. Types are useful here, especially in Premiere Pro, at least for me. I like to use the marker type to determine whether this is a marker that I want to cover in more detail in terms of this is a B-roll marker, so that I need more footage, so that I can basically export a list of what I still need to be producing, filming or screenshots that I need to collect. And or these markers can also be for the show notes. And there's two different types of markers that I use in Premiere Pro, at least, to be able to get that effect. Now, this file, it might not be as hard to just take these parts and turn them over and such things, but I want to do these things with a click of a button. I don't like to do things very much manually. Now, this here, this there. Oops. So many windows to sort through. Really can understand why it might be beneficial to have a dedicated streaming PC, or Mac for that matter. So what we have, this is the file, as you can see, and these markers, like I said, I don't want to do that manually. However, we can copy and paste what we have into the website. So I can just select all of this, copy it into the clipboard, take it to my little podcast show notes formatter, paste it in there, and then I can say I want this with milliseconds or with show notes. Show notes, badam, all of the other stuff is gone, and it's just the time marker and the title that I wrote in there. So this in itself, to me, makes it super useful, because I can just take something like this, set the markers in my editing program like Audition, and transform them over to be this file to then basically just give me these show notes that I can then copy, or click this copy to clipboard button and it does it by itself. But I can copy this and paste it in here, for example, just for reference. And there you have it, the second and minute time markers. And you can just paste that into your YouTube description and it would be recognized as chapter markers. So what I want to do now is I want to make this more universal as a tool that's not just based on Audition, but it actually should understand multiple systems and not just this one system. And to be able to do that, well, to backtrack a little bit, I actually made something for Alfred, and you can see I make a lot of Alfred workflows that are just for myself and they don't get published, but I might end up publishing more of them at some point. But what I made here essentially is that I have something here, a couple file actions is this what it's called. And basically what I can do is if I have a time marker file, which is this right here, this is the time marker file that we just opened and then used. And if I do a file action on this, for example, reformat markers like this with milliseconds, I click that, and then this file actually gets transformed to that. So this is something that I'm also going to probably cover on my YouTube channel at some point. The reverse also works like this, just reversed it. And then I can also do the show notes. And there we go. This is now like a show note file. Yeah, but I noticed the same problem with Premiere, and I want to also use the same for Resolve. And I have done a demo or a prototype, but I want to make it more unified, so to say. So we put my browser window right here, and I will close this. Don't need that anymore for today. IA Writer can go. And what do we want? We want Sublime Text. Open the folder structure. And what I have here is this. Well, these here are the demo markers. These here are the different files that make or are provided as a export up on use from, in this case, Audition. Then we have Premiere Pro markers, and this is a kind of like a sneak peek for my next video, which is about 32-bit float recording and the F6, as well as a little bit of the track E. This is how markers look in Premiere Pro. And then we have the Resolve markers, and this is again also a upcoming video because I'm kind of I tested out to produce a video in Premiere, and at the same time I also filmed another video, and that one was completely produced or edited in Davinci Resolve, which I'm testing out again with the demo of the 17 beta, or yeah, Resolve 17 beta. So testing that out is something that's very interesting. And I have to say, the performance of Davinci Resolve is kind of mind-blowing. That's for sure. Now, I'm not sure whether or not it makes sense for me to switch yet, but I can definitely say that it's, yeah, very interesting. There are things in Resolve that are absolutely missing, and it feels kind of devastating not to have certain features, but at the same time, it's something that I might have to work with for the gains that I'm able to get there. That's true. And in terms of talking about value, because you mentioned here formatting our productions, I don't think about it necessarily from the standpoint of Google promoting it more because you have my markers or something. It might be helpful, not really sure about that though. What I do, however, believe is that it makes sense to make things accessible in different ways and more structured. Now, for me right now, it's not feasible to have, for example, closed captions really typed out for my videos. This is just something that I could not afford if I wanted to do that for every video that I produce. However, time markers are something that I can create whilst creating the video that I'm making. It's something that I can do straight away whilst editing the video by setting these markers. Now it's just a matter of transforming this garbage here, which is machine readable but not human readable, and make something out of that that's much more readable. So that's what we're going to be doing here. I don't want to save this. These are the different marker formats that we need to be able to understand. I also have a little README file here already prepared because there's a couple of weird things going on, or not weird things, but the process of exporting markers in Resolve is a little harder. Premiere Pro export markers as JSON file. Export markers. So this will, I will set this as DK. DK is a shortcut for me that usually means to come. Marker converter. This is just a working title. And I think these are rather 3. So this is kind of like just a README file, which is going to be filled with over the course of this project, but who knows how exactly this is all going to turn out. Generally speaking, I think it's time to hit the console. And with npm init, we are going to make a project file and subl index.js. Okay, so we have that. And what I mentioned earlier is that I actually already have a demo of this working with for example, the show notes and also the detailed formats for Audition. So this is the code. Really, really minimal. Not something very huge. It's of course, it's always good to have your client's project to be seen. Just a question of whether you want to do it with SEO or if it's also referrals and making good content. Because good content always will, at the end of the day, advertise itself, basically. But talking about this further here, or looking at this further here, this basically is the script that transforms Audition markers, takes them from a file path, reads the file in, and also transforms those lines. It ignores the first line and then splits the rest into its marker format and renames the file and does a little bit of magic. Now, this is not going to work universally. This is very much a bare bones script. And yeah, this is not going to be working. That's not going to be the base for what we are going to be doing. However, I recently started using this with my Davinci Resolve code, basically, and making this more useful for future setups. So what we notice here is that in Node.js, and this is going to be more of a code-based stream from now on, and I don't know if this is going to be interesting for everybody who is here already, but at least it's what I'm going to be doing here. Because I want to incorporate this more into my stream. I want to incorporate it more into the work that I do. And this is what I want to share also with the community as a useful tool. And I like how other people have done coding streams in the past to kind of like start with a relatively small problem and then grow from there. Now with this here, what we can see is that this is a well, I like to code in Node.js, which is a JavaScript-based language set that you can use on a computer, which is not necessarily in the browser. That's what I'm going to be testing this with. I'm going to code with this in a whole JavaScript environment, so to say. And this is also this is going to be the tools or frameworks and libraries that I'm going to use here, but we need to install them to be able to do that first. Now, it may not make sense to take everything because I might not need everything. But we can see Slogify is being used, camel case is also being used, SMTP is in this case being used, but I'm not sure if I'm going to use that in the upcoming version. Now, if I'm going to use FS, file system access, and paths, probably mainly because I also want to incorporate these files that I'm testing it with, but it might not be what will end up using, because this is going to be a library that is then going to be built into, for example, the website and the tool for Alfred. So these two are, or these are going to go in. Let's copy these over. I think it's like coding languages, like there are just too many to know them all, obviously. And it also makes no sense to know them all. But yeah, working with this and seeing how it goes, it's what I work with and what I enjoy writing. Let's say that. Convert. Maybe this is kind of like a working title, but we'll see. So we'll have an index file, which is basically going to take care of the whole file stuff. We're going to read our file there and gonna read a file from the path, read the file into a variable or a constant in here, read it synchronously. I don't care right now about file streams or stuff like that. I just want to get the file. There are possible ways of optimizing this, so to say, but I don't want to do those right now. What I do want is I want to async, just in case I'm going to do that later. I just want to start like this right now. Might not need that at all. If I do it all synchronously, it might be something that I add later to be able to do things asynchronously. Now, installing CSV, Slogify, camel case, as well as moment. SMTP timecode. It was useful in this case. Not sure if I'm going to need it again. Let's just remove it for now because it's less bulky. CSV is what we're going to use to be able to basically read the CSV files. And since they're all CSV files, we might as well use a library to do it. We then have other processes to take that information to basically have that understandable for us, ready to go. Now, we need the parser in here, but we also want to export a function. And in this case, we want to call that, let's call it markConvert text. And this is the content of the CSV module exports markConvert. So this exports that. Let's put this up here, because we already know that that's going to be something I want to be doing. Now, I also want to put, well, let's just leave it right like that. Now, what I want to do here first is that I would like the records to be parsed from the content. So I'm taking something from the other part here, obviously, because I want to reuse most of this, or at least not reinvent the wheel. What is happening here is that I'm going to be calling this from the outside of the script. And then I have the text in here, and I would be able to log that to the console. And then I have a thingy, or a parser, to read the CSV text, and from that convert it into something that the program understands. So I'm also going to log the records. And this is already something that's going to be interesting to look out for. Now, to call this, we need to require, and I like to kind of like separate my own files from the system libraries here. So what we're going to call here is our marconvert. And I think I can just call it like this, but I'm going to take a more rigid approach here. Marconvert. And I'm going to call it here with the contents of the file. And of course, like, it makes sense to put a, make this a class of some sort. But right now I'm going to build a prototype. So I'm not going to worry, or I'm not worrying about all those details about building a class to do those things and hold that information. Absolutely makes sense down the line to kind of like make this more library-esque, to be able to have configurations and different output models and stuff like that. Right now it does not have a response, so I'm not going to worry about that. So what's happening here? We have our library. I'm going to call, like, I'm importing that. That has a function that calls the same way the name calls. So I'm going to just put this here in brackets and extract that directly from there. From that, we have file path. So the file path is read from the process argument here in this case. Not going to be doing that right now. Or no, not going to do that. Path resolve, I'm just going to hard code it. Audition markers CSV. Or let's start with the resolve ones, because this is a resolve timeline. JSON CSV. I'm going to start with that because I already have used that parser on that kind of file. Demo markers. Contents, read that file based on UTF and trim the content so there are no spaces or something like that at the beginning or the end. Put that into marconvert, and inside marconvert we're printing that text, and then we are going to log the records that are going out of this this CSV parser. This is not a JSON file. Why did I call this JSON? This is just that, and I'm gonna rename this J for CSV, and this is gonna just like that. Okay, so this goes there, there. No daemon index.js. And there we go. And what did I say? Demo resolve marker CSV does not exist. Oh, it's the edit index. Let's just put that there. And there we go. So scrolling up here, let's see what we have. So first off, here is where it started again. So we start the Node.js file, and there we have the text CSV, which is correlating to this part right here, text CSV, and then it just prints the text that it was read from the file. And that basically is just what we expected. Then on the other end, we have the records. This is based on this line right here, and this is basically just reading the CSV parsed by this tool or this library here. So we have that. The records are in, and they are basically an array of those things, and the titles or these names for these, this is an object. Every line is an object basically, and in that object you have different parameters or attributes like source in, source out, and such things. And if we open that file, we can see that this is basically based on this. So it kind of slugifies these things here, slugifies them and makes them into this type of system. Now, this already has another function in here which maps the header so that these here are this slugified form, and they're also camel case. So they are first camel case, so everything that has a, if I open this demo file here again, source out, for example, is first camel cased. Camel case means that in this case, first letter of the first word is always small or lowercase, and then every space after, or every letter after a space is going to be higher case, like uppercase. Same thing goes with FPS in this case. So everything gets transformed to this, and we can see that the source FPS, for example, is also put here in this format. Now, this here had another add-on in this previous one, because Slogify extended that the hash symbol is supposed to mean a, in this case, index. This is because, for example, in Resolve, this here is that index, and that hash symbol is something that is not really understood by Slogify. So I'm going to put this here, which basically extends Slogify to also understand the hash symbol and replace it with index. So we're going to just put a little bit of a thing. To index or use in object. So we have that extension here. And now if I scroll all the way down here and I reload, you'll see that now this here actually is called index. And with that, we have the CSV file from Resolve read as a JSON object, basically a JavaScript understandable object that I can now work with. And for example, if I want to get just all the names or comments, where is it? Notes. The note is what my text, for example, says. I can just go in here and say records for each, and then record, write a little function here. And with that, for example, I could log, and if we just do a little bit of a record dot, let's say source in, and then record dot note. Running this, we'll see note is not defined. What was it called? Notes. So it's notes, and then we have this here. And if I just take away this part already, now this here is already a way cleaner version of what we had previously. And I hope that it does not have any, like this here is a wrap because of the size of my console, not because of a line wrap or something. So this is all one line always. And we already have time markers and the note. So this is for resolve only. Now, if I wanted to get like a format that is understood by something like our YouTube comment section or our YouTube descriptions, I would have to do something a little different, because this here takes a different time format. So you can see that this is not an hour-long video, and it even starts at 1 because of timecode. This is how timecode works. Now, I will have to find a way to distinguish different CSV formats, whether they are from Resolve, Adobe Audition, Premiere Pro, because they all are a little different here. I hope so, that it helps many people, actually. So yeah, I actually don't consider myself that great of a coder, but it works, and that's the main point here. You really have to just make something and then see whether or not it becomes useful to people. And it is useful to me, and I want to be able to not hoard that tool, but it needs to be more concise and more logical to be able to become something useful for others. And I have also other plans for example, moderating YouTube comments or integrating them into OBS and such things. I already started those projects. I really want to get to those at some point as well, but it's definitely not going to be today. So that's going to have to wait a little bit. By the way, a little celebration here. If I were to have sound effects, I would play them now. Maybe I have. What is this? I have some sound effects somewhere. Let's see. I need some drum roll or something like that. This is probably not going to be showing up on my mix here. OBS, where is it? OBS music. OBS music needs some Farrago. Yes, and let's see. Oh no, it's hanging. Well, that's what you get for upgrading to the latest OS version straight away. Anyways, main point, there's a new subscriber on the channel. Whoop, whoop. And also car horn here. Main point, drum roll. Don't think that goes through all the way. Doesn't sound all too bad, I think. Or not as good as I would hope. But main point, there's 1,997 people on the channel subscribed. So almost 2,000. Don't know if I'm going to stay that long, but thank you everybody who is subscribed to this channel. Really helps out a lot. Also, if you like this stream or any of the videos, that also helps out a lot as well. Really appreciate that. Yeah, I really enjoy making these videos. I hope to make much more and hopefully be able to also sustain myself, because that means that I can do so with more peace of mind. And right now, client work and YouTube always goes hand in hand. Well, it doesn't really go hand in hand. Both have to happen. That's the thing that I'm going to try to say here. But yeah, one more on the list, and that's really amazing. And that also during this stream. It would be really, really phenomenal if I were to see another or 3 others come in and subscribe to the channel. That would be sick. But to continue our little coding journey right here, we have our code that reads out like this. It almost is a marker list for the show notes. However, the time in here is a little different. And also there are 2 different kinds of markers, and we might want to be able to filter that stuff. And that's something that also will become implemented later. But what I want to be able to do right now is to test whether or not I get a similar effect for the other marker types. So with this, we're going to comment this, and we're going to log the records again as they are right here. And now I want to really see how do the records look if I don't read this file, but instead I read the Audition file. Let's see. And there we get name, start, duration, time, format, blah, and it's just everything because it's based on a tab, not a comma. So it looks like we'll have to already differentiate right in front of here whether or not it's a Davinci Resolve file or if it's a file from something else. And looking at this, there's marker at the beginning. In the case of Audition, there's name at the beginning, marker, and there's this. So maybe if I go in here and I say text CSV starts with, let's see if this goes. This is pure, whoop, so there we go. It starts with name. So the markers for if or switch starts with name, let marker file type resolve. Marker file type is turned into Audition. Else if we want to test for the Premiere Pro, for example, as well. In that case, I want to test for text CSV starts with marker. Not sure if this is going to hold up throughout adding more different things or different files or file types to manage here, but let's go with it for now. Because of course, like, I can only add as much complexity as I am aware of at the time, right? And in this case, I have a file that starts with marker, I have a file that starts with name, and I have a file that starts with this. Now, if somewhere down the line, I learn that there are other file types and there are other tools also in this mix, and there are, I don't know, there's a second one that starts with marker, or Premiere Pro does not always include marker. This is something that I need to become aware of over time. It's not something that I can jump in and already now be able to distinguish between hundreds and hundreds of different files, because I actually don't know them. This is how the files look that I know. This is how I can work with them. And probably once this is all online, and once I have it ready to go, then I will be able to set this up in a way that others can help me, give me feedback, basically. Just, yeah. So that's right now, this is what I have. This is the differentiation. Let's log how these are marker file type. So this is right now read as Audition, which is perfect because it is exactly what I wanted. Now, if I were to, let's run this, this, and this. Premiere Pro. I'm gonna take this here. And then make this a triple here as well, contents, and then there we go. Basically now I can run all of the three with all the three different file types. And if I go and remove this for now, remove this for now as well, because I just want to know the file type got connected for each of them. No such file, Premiere Pro markers. Oh. Now, come on. Wasn't writing that right. So what we get is the first one, which is resolve, gets accounted for as resolve. The next one gets accounted for audition, which is correct, but the last one, the Premiere Pro one, gets read as resolve as well. Now we have this starts with name and starts with marker. So if it's not starts with name and it starts with marker, then it should give us that. And this is how it starts. Now, why is this not the case? And with that, I would have to log at least the first line, but I'm not sure how I could do that. Let's just text CSV split, and I'm going to split it by new line, and I'm going to just get the first one. Let's see if this works. It does, but apparently marker files, or the marker file from Premiere Pro, starts with unknown characters. Interesting. So what if I delete this and run this again? So it still starts with unknown characters. Run this again. Maybe I can use those to see. Nope. Interesting. Always starts like that. Okay. We'll have to work with that. That's exactly what I meant. These types of things happen. Whoops. Totally forgot to show you the screen again. So what we have right here, still, I'm trying to figure out which file is which type. And for that, I have the Audition markers, I have the Premiere Pro markers, and I have the Resolve markers. The Premiere Pro markers, however, are giving me a couple of struggles because they don't behave. Now, how about looking at those like this? So this file, not really giving me any information right here. So there are some weird characters at the beginning of this file, and I'm not sure where those are coming from, why those are there. Don't even know what they are. Let's figure that out. How about that? Yeah. So copying those, Chrome. What is this? There are nothing? Okay, so there are just question marks, question mark characters. Mm-hmm. How do I get rid of these? I don't even know how to find them. Why is this happening? Let's just look at this. Just this one. So this is the question mark one. So it doesn't even, so the 2 is the M, 1 is a question mark 1, 0 is also. What is this? JavaScript decode. String from char code at nope. Decode is not defined. Oops, maybe I should just remove that again. So this is the character 6,500 and the 65,000. Okay. Okay, so this is because the file that I'm using apparently is not UTF-8, or at least not compliant to that. What if I use UTF-16? Just UTF? No. So trim is not a function if it's not something like this, but UTF-8 provides with a question mark character because it might be a corrupt thing. Interesting problem to fix here, or trying to figure out. Now, someone wrote that this might work on Stack Overflow, but that doesn't seem to be a valid either. UTF-8. But how about I just use, well, let's just try something here. I'm gonna open Premiere Pro, see how it goes. Not sure if my computer is going to be able to handle all of this, but I want to test at least if I save this file again, if the same issue arises. If it does not, I might just jump over the first 2 characters and ignore them. So in this case, I want to go here. Okay. Now come on. Yes, I know that it's offline. Drive is not connected. So now, whoops, export markers. This is going to the desktop, and it's a CSV file because it's machine readable. Okay. Let's not close this for now, but bring these markers that I just now exported. Probably this file. Let's see. 2138 created. Let's bring it over here for let's just rename it like 1. Let's go back here and change this to -1. Okay, so these files are indeed just coming from the editing program like that. Now it's file encoding macOS by command line. Let's see, file E on Premiere Pro markers. UTF-16LE. Tried UTF-16, but it didn't work. Now, what is the other? UTF-8. And Audition is also UTF-8. Are you kidding me? So this is probably going to be an... This is an issue that's not going to be an issue, at least not for... And now it's Premiere, because it actually reads the M. Whoop, whoop. Ha. Okay, so something I will have to figure out once I actually start reading files, because apparently I have to read them in the right format. Make sure to read file in correct encoding. Premiere needs UTF-16LE. Others may be different. Node.js fs get file encoding. This is probably going to be possible somehow, but also not something that I'm going to necessarily be concerned about just now. But let's see how this goes. Read file sync. How to detect encoding in Node.js. And what are they saying here? Detect character encoding. Read file sync. What am I using here? Read file sync? Yeah. So I'm... Interesting. So if I just put it like this, then I get an error already on the resolve one because it does not it's not able to trim because it's not. Oh, now I get it. CM, thank you for stopping by. Really appreciate you being here and helping me out with the audio and the volume and letting me know about that. That was really cool. Also, please check out the new videos as they come out, and I'm always happy to see you in the comment section. Also, whenever I am going to be streaming again, you're welcome. Also, yeah, once this tool is ready, it will be super useful because I will make it so that it's easy to use for others as well, so that I am not the only person who is able to use this type of tool. You can also. So that's the whole point of this. This is supposed to become something that is not code-based. That's the reason why I'm building code to begin with. So yeah, stay tuned for that. And once or whenever I will have something to launch, you'll know on the channel. For now, this here is something that I'm going to store for later because I will need that at some point, but not now, because right now I'm just going to take this as it is. So now these are getting indexed correctly, so to say. The first one's Resolve, then Audition, then Premiere Pro. So they are marked correctly for the program they are coming from. With that, I will now change how they are processed here, because as you can see, this one works. Where are we? So the first one works because it's Resolve. And then we have two which are just mumbo jumbo. Name start duration, marker named blah. So with the CSV parse, there is a way. Let's go into the documentation here. There's a way to tell this thing what the delimiter is. Now, tab. Oh. Okay, so the delimiter will be different based on what we are inputting. So marker file type, if this is equal to Resolve, it will be the default. If not, it will be tab. But this will be the tab character. So this will default to comma and be tab for others. Oops, forgot the comma there. Okay, so again, Resolve read correctly. And now we have marker converter. Column length is 6, got 5 on line 5. This is, which one is this? Audition. Audition 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we have outro 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 0. Huh. What do we do here? Column count relax. Tolerates datasets with inconsistent number of fields between records. By default, an error is thrown. So we will relax this one here because we don't care. And let's see. There we go. This is how it's done. So why is there's this empty one here? There's one that doesn't have a name. Is this because it ends? How does it end? Description. Marker description, in, out, duration, marker type, and then something. Well, it's empty, and the last one doesn't have it. That's also interesting. Oh no, I understand. Or don't. Okay, so I don't. This is something that the Premiere Pro ones have. The Audition ones start with... Okay, so the Premiere Pro ones start with marker name first, and then there's a tab. And they also, at the very end, they have a tab in the first line, which means they are basically as if there were another field, which doesn't exist, but nonetheless. Doesn't really matter for us. For us, what I want to be doing here is I want to simplify. I want to map the records. Records cleaned, because I want something that I can understand between every different format. This makes no sense if they're all different here. So the records cleaned will be return object record. And in this case, let's go for marker file type, switch. Case. We are going for Audition first. Premiere break. And then we have, let's go, and we have in each case, we're going to build a little bit of a return object. I could also just make a function, like, anyways. Also, the interesting thing is, like, we are going to be returning the same thing for each of these. So we're just going to assign different values here. So we have index. Index? Yeah, I would say so. Index, we can use something here. I think there should be an index variable in this. And let's just take, for now, just the first one. So we're just going to run the values for only Audition. And for Audition, I'm going to run the index in here, but I'm also going to just now log index. Map. So yeah, it actually does give us an index, and this is great news because it helps us order things. However, in Resolve, we're going to do the index differently, because in Resolve, make this like this. In the Resolve, the index will be record.index. And if you remember, that is the number that is the hash symbol. So if I open the record here, this is going to be our index right here. The others don't have anything like it, so I'm just going to create it myself. But I need a comma here. Oh, and Resolve still open, Premiere Pro. So we're going to close that because I just wanted to export a new marker there, which we don't need anymore. So index we already have. Then we have the name, and that's the record.name start timecode start type, in this case record.type, and why not? Now, here, this is one of those things. I personally never use the description. I use the type and I use the start time. And I also use the name. Yeah, well, the name is the marker, and the index is something that I'm just going to add because it makes sense. Like, that's something that I can get behind. Now, record start is our time code. Like, this is the time code that I'm talking about right now. This part here, though, if read as a time code, let's just add that here because I think I'm gonna work with this again. SMPTE time code. SMPTE. And let's just try and read this here. Record.start. And there we go. Timecode string expected as HH blah. So this is not a valid timecode. However, it's a time format, right? This is a time format, which will also continue to include hours if you do something that has hours in it. This here only has seconds. So we have seconds, and then we have 1 minute 44. And that's it. That's all we have. And I'll have to figure something out here. Using something that is time, like something that can work with times in some way. Because if I just read this into moment, for example, let's just try that. What happens if I do that? So we have an invalid date in that moment. So this helps nothing at all because it isn't really helpful. So new date, what if I do that? Still invalid date because it's not a date, it's just a time. So let's see what do we have? Moment.js for only time values. They're still working with that. I remember something like that. I used something for time values specifically in a different project, but I don't know. Not gonna dive deep into that right now, I think. So baseline being, at some point, I want a unified format in here. However, right now, don't care. I'm not logging that anymore, but I want to log the records cleaned after they are cleaned. So this is right now undefined. Interesting. Undefined. Map reduce. I'm one of those people that believes that basically programming is just a bunch of reading and seeing how other people solved your problem. So it's supposed to go in here. Record. Oh, no. This is how it's done. Map. There we go. So what do we have? We have the records first. This is the format that is given to, whoops. Okay, so this is the format that we are given from the Audition CSV file after it is imported into our little code snippet here. From that, it is cleaned up. Have a great evening to you, CM. I hope this was fun. Thank you for being here. And yeah, see you in the comment section of the next video. That's gonna be good. I hope it's gonna be an informative video. It's exported. It's gonna be uploaded after this live stream. Posted probably tomorrow, sometime around 5 p.m. Central European time. So take care and have a good time. And I'm gonna do a little more, at least this part here with the record cleanup. That's gonna be covered in this live stream. And then I'll also head out. By the way, another celebration. Where are we? Camera switch. I need a fucking stream deck. Anyways, I just noticed also 1,998 subscribers to this channel. Drum roll. Really happy. 2 people during this live stream. I appreciate it. It's awesome. And I can't wait to hit 2,000. So maybe I just have to actually be online for another hour or 2 to be there when it happens. I don't know yet, but let's just keep going for now with what I have been doing and yeah, keep building. And to do so, we're going to switch to the Premiere demo file. And as you can see, this cleans up to nothing because we have nothing defined here. And we need basically a copy of this, but this is not going to be working for all of it. Marker name is name in this case, so this is that. The in is this. However, this time it's actually a timecode. At least it's a much better timecode. And the marker type, of course, is something that I want as well, because I want to be able to differentiate that later on. So there we go. There we go. Now let's read this into SMPTE. Whoa. So there we go. At least it's something. I have done this here. SMPTE time formatted. Okay. So if I wanted to, I could define a date and time format here. I don't want that right now. Maybe I just need a way to later on. So if I wanted to go back here to the Audition files, the timecode here is a little slightly different from what we get here with Premiere Pro. Premiere Pro is, of course, a different system because it doesn't use milliseconds. Instead, it uses frame count. Maybe I just have to really keep that the way it is. And maybe I need to process those differently. Anyways, so now I get this here. I have an index, I have the marker, I have the time code, and I have the type of the marker that I used. This is great. This is Audition. Now I do the same thing for Premiere Pro. And we have an index, we have a text, we have the time code, and we have the type. And I'm using chapter and comment markers. Now let's look into the Premiere Pro markers. There are comment and chapter markers, and there are no color definitions in any of this here. We'll see about that later, if there's any more differentiations or whatever. And then we have the last set in this case, which is the resolve marker. And the resolve marker has the name, I think it's called notes. The color, for me, that's the type in this case. And the source in is where it starts. So the start time code. it does not have a duration. I don't yet understand fully what the difference between record in and source in is. Also something that I have not encountered to be a problem up to this point. Name comment, all that is empty. However, the color is interesting because that way I differentiate between the types. So it's a red one, it's a B-roll marker, and a blue one is a different type of marker. And for later, I will have different systems for different people so that they can use those things as they wish. So here we have index, and we want to read that as, how do you say that? Parse int. And there we have a number, because the index is always going to be a number, most likely. And with that, I now am able to read these different systems and give something in return. Okay, so now I can comment this out and this out. Breaks don't need those commas. This is nice, this is nice, this is nice. Now, error handling is also something that will be done at a later stage. At this point, not necessary. Now, something like a real simplification is I want to be able to define an output format, show notes, and the output format can also be, let's call it detailed. So either someone writes show notes or detailed. Now, let's handle this. If we want to create let contents new or text new, text output is an empty array because I want to just create lines for now. And this here is actually going to be record cleaned map record. And we are going to return a string, and it's going to be start timecode. This is where we are going to be differentiating between the different return values of if output format show notes. And here we are going to record name. How about we change name in text? Or title? Maybe at some point someone will use the rest of those things, and I don't want to have to redo everything once that's the case. Open. There we go. But the detailed one should include the marker type. I think that makes sense. Record type. So now we have this text output, and we're actually going to return this. Why is this? Oh, Okay, so no output is good because we will have to take it here, and I want to just make those changes to these two as well. Just start like that. Makes much more sense to have this as an options object. Format detailed options up there. Making this standard. Yeah, options format. Nice. Oops. So now we just need to also print this. I joined these with something. I did something to join them. Yes, of course. Join with a new line at the end. Please work with those as well. And there we go. We have markers in this format and with their type as well. Now, there will be different things about different formattings with tabs and not and who knows what. There are so many options out there. But this actually is the first step, I would say, to be able to do this. Now, if I do the same thing with these, I will get this, just the time, the type, and the marker text. Show notes reduces and does not have the marker text, and with the Premiere Pro markers, it is the same thing. If there's nothing defined, it uses show notes automatically. If I say detailed, it also creates this here. Now, I want to make this one step further. One step further will be that the time here gets broken down, at least for the ones that have timecode. So in the case of timecode, I'm going to make this? How can I make this? So I will always have availability to the type of file that I started to read, at least the way that I'm envisioning this whole setup. So I can also work with SMTPE and read these time codes because they are available to me. So now we have SMPTE there. Now, of course, this is not going to work anymore. Oh, SMPTE. So this just ends up being text again. Wait. Yeah, this is the Premiere Pro. Premiere. So we have the Premiere SMPTE to date. Now we have the whole thing with a date. Now we can do this with a moment, because moments can nicely format time for us. And now I actually have something prepared that processes this depending. Okay, so let's make a mark. We need something here. SMPTE to show node. So the time format depends on whether it's a show node or. Okay, so we need function SMPTE to just time. Yeah. And we have format here, time. Let's just kill this for now. We're just gonna work this. Format show nodes, SMPTE to string, or time.format line source in. So the time code to string if it is not show node. And show node, then it takes the time, formats it if it has more than an hour. No, if this is bigger than 1 or damn it. There are time codes that have a 1 at the start and there are some that don't. So how am I going to work this? Let's drink and have an apple for thinking purposes. So I think I have a little bit of a solution here. What I have is that it basically differentiates between whether or not the type of SMPTE timecode is from resolve or a resolve file, or if it is not. If it is, then it is actually treated as a usual SMPTE timecode. And the difference is that SMPTE timecodes always start at 0, 1 hours. I have no clue why, but it is. And the timecode from Premiere Pro, though, is not doing that. Timecode from Premiere Pro is always at 0, 0 in the beginning, and the first hour counts. Now, in this case, the line of code that I have written here basically checks whether or not it's resolve. And if that is the true, and the hour is greater than 1, so it's more than that, then it writes the hour format in here. However, oh no. There is a much simpler solution than this. Haha. How about this? I just, if options type don't if options type is resolve, I'm minus, no. Moment.js subtract hour. Time gleich time dot subtract 1 hours. And the format in this case becomes, again, very simple, because I can just make this here a variable and a inline if. What it does is if the hour is greater than 0, then I want hour, and if not, then we are not going to add anything. So this, if opons doesn't, yep, well, time let let's see if this would work. This here, this is probably the resolve file right now. So if I put a 2 right here, then it puts 1 hour 25. So it works. If I put a 1 here and I redo it, it's not an hour there. And if I do the same thing with the Premiere file, then I still get all of this, because I have not configured it. And there we go. But now, oh no, oh no! Oh no, oh no, oh no. Because I said it's resolve, No, the type is not resolve. How about just putting marker type? How about storing the marker type? I'm gonna store this here. Line 72. Okay, so this is a standalone function, but it creates that. Now, if I take the Premiere Pro markers and I tell this one to be at 1 hour, then we have no marker. Oh. Yeah, I started using those number 1 markers. Come on. Yep, delete the file, don't save it. I want to make this as a 2-hour marker. And there we go, we have the 2-hour marker. 1-hour marker. And there we go. 0-hour marker. And the hour is gone. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Now, with the markers for up here, not quite the same thing, because they are time markers with milliseconds. Time markers with milliseconds. I worked those previously. To the detailed one, I just put the time marker. So, options, format. Nope, nope, nope. So for the detailed Audition ones, we're just going to take what we get. That's it. But for the ones that are show note markers, okay, so I made a regular expression for that. Maybe I just need a little more. I can put this outside of the map so it doesn't get redefined every single time I run this. Regex. Regex audition time. This is one of those cases where I probably want to just have a simpler solution with some kind of, let's just say, library. But I will get the time based on this for now. And so I'm going to extract this, and it's going to hopefully leave this behind. Now, this seems to be the place where I want to take this and put it right there. And the regex is this one that I want to execute on the split 0, and that's this, because we don't have splits anymore. And I'm gonna just simplify this, take this back here, Somehow my keyboard keeps doing stuff that I don't want it to do. Maybe it's tired. Maybe the computer is tired as I am, but I want to at least get this one here done. Okay, so now let's try out how this does with the Audition. And whilst I'm at it, I think I'm just dropping this. Make it a little easier. Okay, Audition. Apparently I removed, what is this? Option not defined. Option.format. Options. There we go. It extracted the time perfectly, at least for now. Later, maybe I'm working this into a moment file as well. However, for now, I can extract this. If I tell it to say detailed, I am keeping the marker type and also the milliseconds. Now, if I switch this to the resolve ones, then I have the show notes and just the marker. If I tell it to say detailed, it gives the usual SMPTE code. And last but not least, we have the show notes or the detailed ones for Premiere Pro. Okay, so now I want to do this one more time with my screen visible because that makes no sense. I just did that without showing it. So this little code here can create. It takes resolve show note markers or resolve markers. Now I tell it to format them in the format to be for YouTube descriptions. This is what you get. Later, there will be filters for the type of markers as well. If I want to have the detailed ones, it gives me the time as detailed as it is in the same thing in the file. And it also gives me the marker color in this case, because that's how resolve works. Then we have the show notes for Audition. In the show notes, you don't have marker types or detailed times, as you can see on the screen on the lower left-hand side here. Now, if I do the detailed ones and I save, you can see that it preserves the full time code here with milliseconds in this case, and the type of the marker. And lastly, we have the show notes for Premiere Pro, and this is what you would use for YouTube. However, with a later implemented filter as well for types of markers, that would be helpful. And then we have the detailed version, full type of marker, and their titles. So this is what will eventually become a tool that is very useful for people that want to use chapter markers for their YouTube videos and not have to worry about typing them out by hand in any kind of way. You can later, when this is finished, and I will probably finish this in future live streams. I'm not sure how many of those I will be doing a week. I like doing it the way that I do it right now and have it set up, and maybe I will do another one this week, maybe next week. But as this progresses, or as I live stream, this will progress forward and hopefully soon be a website that everybody can use to take their Premiere Pro, Resolve, or Audition markers and use those for purposes of being show notes on your blog, on your podcast, in the description of your podcast, and or also in the chapters or the chapter markers for YouTube. I think it's going to be really amazing. I already love using my little script in Alfred, and this makes it so much cleaner to be able to just push in any file I want from any of these three programs, and it spits out my markers the way that I have configured them here and programmed this to be. Now, as I mentioned before, in later versions, I will have a plan on how this will look on a website, and it will probably give much more options in terms of adding the type of marker, not adding the type of marker, filters so that you can filter based on the type of marker so that you only get, let's say, your comment markers or your chapter markers, so that you can filter between those, and it just gives you one or the other. So you can still use, for example, in my case, I use the chapter markers in Premiere Pro for B-roll shots, and I use the comment markers for the show notes or the chapter markers for YouTube so that I can put them in the description. So that's everything I have for you today. I hope you liked this live stream demonstration programming Q&A session. If you have any further questions, please feel free to send them to me in either Instagram or on Twitter. You can also send them in the comment section of any video, and or also with the next live chat, the next live stream that I'm going to do here. And I will schedule that in advance, probably at least 24 hours, maybe even 2 days before it actually is going to happen. So keep an eye out for that. And with that closing, I'm still at 1,998 subscribers. Very much thank you to those 2 people that just joined in and joined during this course during the course of this live stream. I'm very much looking forward to connecting in the comment section of any video that is coming up. As I've mentioned before, there's one going up just tomorrow and then another one later this week on Friday. So stay tuned for those, and I will see you in the next one. Ciao, ciao.